Welcome to New Teacher Talk. I'm so glad you decided to tune into this episode, and hopefully you're finding other episodes a great support to you as you continue your teaching journey. New Teacher Talk is here for all your teaching needs. My name is Leana Malinowsky, and I am an elementary teacher in New Jersey. I have about 17 years of teaching experience, primarily teaching first grade. However, I've taught various grade levels and subjects, and I've worked with general education, special education, and ESL students. I am the 2022-2023 Middlesex County Teacher of the Year, top 4 finalist for State Teacher of the Year, recipient of the 2023 Winslow Coyne-Reitner Excellence in Teaching Award, and I am also a certified structured literacy dyslexia specialist through SERI. I always share with people that I have 3 loves of my teaching life: special education, literacy, and teacher leadership. This is why I'm very excited to be here with all of you, sharing my love for literacy and hopefully igniting yours. I know what it's like to be in your shoes, my friends. In fact, I'm still with you because I'm always on a quest to learn more and understand how to teach reading better. I mean, let's face it, we know that our college classes haven't, or don't, teach us everything we need to know about teaching reading. Hence why I always suggest joining the Facebook group, The Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College, and other reading groups to network and learn more about best practices. We need more support as educators to teach literacy. This is what motivates me to share with all of you what I've learned through my own reading, webinars, podcasts, and years of experience in the classroom. So today, we are going to discuss a great topic that I've recently been trying to learn more about: oral language acquisition through read-alouds. As usual, I'm going to refer back to Scarborough's Rope by Dr. Hollis Scarborough and The Simple View of Reading by Goff and Tumner. The Simple View of Reading reminds us that there are 2 sides to the reading comprehension equation: decoding and language comprehension. Scarborough's Reading Rope further breaks each of these sides down with word recognition, such as decoding and phonological awareness, and then language comprehension, which includes background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. While we won't dive deeply into all of these today, I will focus on the ones that are part of the language comprehension side. I also want to pause for a moment to mention here that we are focusing our thinking on the language aspects of reading, which, firstly, has more components and make up a large part of our comprehension of text. And secondly, this is the area that many who are skeptical about the science of reading feel is ignored, and that phonics takes precedent. Now, of course, it's true that part of the science of reading is a focus on foundational skills. Without them, early readers won't acquire the necessary skills to read print. Language, however, is equally important. After all, our human brains are wired for language and speaking, not for reading. And in order to read, we need to develop efficient language skills. Think of it this way: if we only focus on letters and phonics, our brain wouldn't be able to piece the puzzle together to read completely. Also, the other way around. So when we focus on developing language, we automatically focus on the necessary skills for reading. So how do read-alouds tie in here? I like to think of read-alouds as your wings to fly as a teacher, and also help your students fly as well. Reading aloud is a great way to provide a model, how to read accurately and fluently. So often students, especially older students such as middle or high school age, who have difficulty understanding what they read, have fluency difficulties. This needs to be addressed by explicit instruction, but seeing and hearing reading with expression, accuracy, and at an appropriate pace helps them understand how they should sound. You can use your reading as a reference point. For example, when working with a student who is practicing fluency, you could say, "Remember how I read the story? I changed my voice and tried to make it sound how I feel the character would have felt at that time." You can also discuss how you didn't read so quickly that you made errors, such as omitting and inserting words, or read them incorrectly, but you read it accurately, which is more important. Reading text aloud also affords a great opportunity to discuss vocabulary, one of the areas on the reading rope, and introduce students to new words that may not be familiar to them. What better way to increase conversation skills and encourage students to use better word choices? In fact, I can attest this tends to happen naturally during and after reading aloud. For my first grade students, I often catch, with air quotes of course, them using new words when they talk to each other because they want to sound grown up or like the book or even like Miss M. By using books with more sophisticated language, we challenge our students to learn and use these new words and get them feeling excited about language. Might I add here, read-alouds are not just for elementary students. Older students also enjoy being read to, and this helps them engage in opportunities to discuss the books, increase their oral vocabulary, and have rich discussions. I've learned through different webinars, articles, and books that read-alouds are an opportunity to use challenging texts in the classroom, expose students to authentic stories, and develop their oral language skills. Even if foundational skills are in need of support here, the students you work with will still need to strengthen their ability to use advanced language, which naturally supports their learning of decoding, encoding, and fluency. Another superpower of read-alouds is the ability to grow and expand on background knowledge. I will pause here to mention that education reporter Natalie Wexler has shared her thoughts on background knowledge and how it's linked to literacy success. In fact, her book called The Knowledge Gap explains this in more detail. She frequently mentions how students who come to school with limited experiences and exposure to general knowledge have a harder time learning to read. Using read-alouds is a way for us as educators to bring different experiences to life for our students, especially, in my opinion, with informational text. Why not read a book about volcanoes? Show a related video that includes the newly learned vocabulary and discuss the different places around the world that have volcanoes. From one book, students can dive deeper into a topic, expand their general knowledge, learn new vocabulary, and even strike up conversations with others about it. This is how we grow oral language, my teacher friends. Oh, and coming from a first grade teacher, please believe me. Although some students may need additional support and prompts to discuss, just watch your little's eyes light up when you start talking about volcanoes. They may not be ready to decode these words on their own in text, but they are ready to talk about them aloud and with you and others. Like we say in my class, we are not afraid of using big words. When it comes to read-alouds, I'd like to add that doing this gives all students, of course, but especially your special education, your ELL, EL, bilingual students, an opportunity to learn alongside their peers about topics with new vocabulary and language structures. I recently heard from William Van Cleve that there is a syntactic variety between languages, and they are structured differently. This makes reading aloud very important for these students, so they can hear how words are structured into sentences, hear from us teachers as well as peers, and have opportunities to practice speaking correctly. Now, this can get tricky at times, my friends, because we all know there is often a difference in how we speak versus how authors compose text. As well, there's language dialects and variants. Nonetheless, students can, should, and have the right to hear formal English and how authors use language and their variations in their work. Hearing a text read aloud is a great way to discuss how the author structured the sentences, aka the syntax. If students see and hear accurate and various sentence structures, this helps them apply this to their own writing. Students will need to do a wealth of their own writing, and read-aloud texts serve as guides for how to write. Now, we could spend a whole other podcast session together on how reading and writing are synced and affect each other. But for today, let's leave it with the thought that syntax and hearing strong examples is important. ELL students also hear vocabulary words in context during read-aloud time, and they're encouraged to use these words more with peers during their discussions. This is authentic and yet practical, the perfect match to helping all students expand their language and therefore their literacy skills. Reading aloud is how many students experience different forms of literature, such as poems, genres, such as realistic fiction, fantasy, and learn about the power of stories. I mean, let's be honest. And my math teachers out there, this may not always apply to you, but we tend to remember more stories than we do statistics and figures. Stories leave a lasting impression on us, and without exposure to these types of texts, students would miss out on recalling some of these fond memories. Think of it like a circle. Language development supports reading. Reading aloud supports the finer strands of the language development, and around it continues. Whether your students are general education, special education, or ELL, first grade or seventh grade, they all benefit from hearing a read aloud. And what's more, talking about the story or topic after. Read aloud stories are what makes text accessible for students who do struggle with decoding and foundational skills, and helps early learners to gain exposure to related content, minus the pressure of reading it on their own before they learn the technical skills needed to read these words. And might I add, as a teacher, I never get tired of reading aloud in my classroom. Read-alouds offer me the time to share some of my favorite stories and topics with my students, uplift the energy, and feel excited to learn. Whenever families ask me about reading at home, although not the cure-all for reading success, I always encourage them to read books together to work on concepts of print, talk about the story, and so students can practice having these discussions about what they read and realize that it's an integral part of family and home life, school life, in all they do now and will do in their future. My advice for you today is to take a few books and practice reading aloud. I know this sounds silly and unnecessary. However, I can't tell you how many adults admit they don't feel confident reading aloud to students. Just like anything else, practice makes permanent and helps you to feel confident reading aloud to your students. Secondly, I encourage you to visit websites such as Reading Rockets and the International Dyslexia Association to learn more about oral language acquisition through read-alouds and the importance of oral language in literacy development. Also, don't forget to check out the resources New Teacher Talk has on social media for more information on oral language in the classroom. Remember, friends, the more confident you feel, the more confident your students will feel. And together, we can raise our future readers and leaders. If you liked this episode, please be sure to check out others I have hosted on literacy. I hope you become a regular follower of this podcast channel. And remember, as a new teacher, we are here to help you.